Hi there, this is Professor Eckhouse, and I'm going to talk today about using formulas to solve word problems. We're going to look at distance, rate, and time, and then how to rearrange some other equations. All right, so let's start with distance, rate, and time equations. So this is something like finding how far you went by taking the rate, which is your speed, times your elapsed time that it took you to get there. So fairly basic. The hardest part generally is rearranging properly and making sure you plug the right things into the right places. So I'm going to help you with that second problem. And that is by doing like what we did for the interest rate equation. We're going to do D equals RT at the top and always write it every single time. And then write D equals R equals and T equals down the side. And then go through the problem and find all the parts. So 3.5 hours at 40 miles per hour. Okay, so how many miles? The question is, how many miles did she drive? So what is that? So you've got to figure out what each thing is. Well, miles is distance. So that's actually the green one. I'll change that one to green. And that's our question mark. So that's where you put your question mark. So 3.5 hours, is that a rate or is that a time? So 3.5 hours is a time, so 3.5 hours. So I like to use decimals when I do math on my calculator. So a half is the same thing as 0.5. So go ahead and change that because it's fairly straightforward. Hopefully at this point you know that 1/2 and 0.5 are the same thing. And then the rate is the speed, remember, and that is 40 miles per hour. All right, so we're finding D. And our formula is already set up to find D. So D equals R times T. So R is 40 and T is 3.5. And when you put this in your calculator, you should get 140. Now this is distance and we were using miles and hours. So think about what the distance unit would be, and it would be miles. Okay, so the distance is 140 miles. All right, example 2. Corey walked for 2 hours and 20 minutes at 3 miles per hour. How many miles did she walk? All right, so let's figure out what everything is. So 2 hours and 20 minutes, 3 miles per hour. And the question is, how many miles did she walk? So the question is miles, that's distance. So that one is going to be our question mark. So 2 hours and 20 minutes, that is time or is it speed? Remember, rate is just speed. So 2 hours and 20 minutes is time. So 2 hours, 20 minutes. Well, how are we going to put that all into hours? Because that's what you need to do. So let's figure out the 20 minutes portion. So how much of an hour is 20 minutes? Well, it's 20 out of 60 minutes. So 20/60th of an hour. So that reduces to 2/6, which then reduces to 1/3. Or you can just take it on your calculator and you're going to get 0.33333, 20 divided by 6. So I'm going to leave it as 1/3 this time because you'll see that it does work sometimes as a fraction nicely. So I'm going to show you it with fractions. All right, so, and I'm doing that because 0.3333 is just a little hard to deal with. If you cut it off, you end up getting sometimes answers that aren't quite right. All right, so this is 2 1/3 hours. All right, now the other part we need is the rate. How fast is she walking? Well, she's walking 3 miles per hour. All right, so let's go work out the problem. We have D equals R times T. So D equals R is 3, that's the rate, and T is 2 1/3. So let's look at how to do this from what we've done in the past without using a calculator. So 3 times 2 1/3, let's put that as an improper fraction. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7, so 2 1/3 is 7/3. And look at what we got. So sometimes it's nice just to check it out with the fractions and see what you're going to do with it. So I took away the parentheses so you can see a little easier what cancels, and hopefully you see at this point in the game that the 3's are going to cancel out. And we get 7/1, which is just 7. 7 what? We'll go back over to your units that you've got written over here. We've got miles and hours. So this is going to be 7 miles. So the distance that she walked was 7 miles. Okay. Example 3. Jenny wants to drive to her friend's house in another town, which is 550 miles away. That is a long ways. 550 miles. If she drives 65 miles per hour, the question is, how long will it take? So what are we looking for? We are looking for elapsed time, so the time that it takes. All right, so then we have to go figure out what everything else is. So that one is our question mark. All right, so 550 miles, that's the distance, 550 miles. And if she drives 65 miles per hour, that's her speed, which is a rate, 65 miles per hour. All right, so we're dealing in miles and hours. So the time that we're going to get as an answer, this answer is going to be in hours, right? Because miles per hour, so it's going to be in hours. All right, so let's look at how we would solve this. We've got D equals R times T. We're given D is 550, so you can look over at what you've got over on the left, and the rate is 65, and the T is unknown. So we're going to have to rearrange by solving for T by dividing both sides by 65. And when we do that, we are going to find that T equals 550 divided by 65 is 8.46. 8.46 what? 8.46 hours. So let's think about that. 8.46 hours. We don't talk about hours in decimals. So just estimate. Let's just stop and think about this. About how many hours is that? Well, 0.46 is almost 0.5. So it's almost half. So this is almost 8 hours and 30 minutes, half of an hour, right? So 0.46 is half of an hour. So converting time is a little bit more challenging than other things because it's not in base 10, it's 60, right? So 0.46 of an hour. Okay, so let's move on. Sadie is 840 miles from the city where her sister lives. If she needs to be there in 12 hours, at what rate does she need to drive? So the question is, at what rate does she need to drive? So that is the unknown is the speed, the rate. All right, so she's 840 miles from the city where her sister lives. She needs to be there in 12 hours. How fast does she have to go? All right, so 12 hours is the time, 12 hours, and the distance is 840 miles. So our speed, since we've got miles here and hours here, is going to be in miles per hour. So just kind of think through that one before you start. All right, so we've got D equals R times T. D is 840. R is our unknown, and T is 12. So how are you going to find R? You're going to divide both sides by 12. And 840 divided by 12 is going to be 70. 70 equals R. So 70 what? 70 what? Well, we decided, we thought about it before, and that's always nice to do, so you get caught up in the numbers and sometimes forget what you're dealing with. It's a rate, and it's miles per hour. All right. So now we're going to look at solving a formula or equation for a variable without any numbers in it. So the first thing we're going to do is solve the D equals RT equation for T. All right, so we've got D equals RT, and often what I recommend doing is highlighting the thing you're looking for, circling it, underlining it, put a box around it, whatever, so you can keep track of what it is that you're trying to find, and it's asking us to solve for T. So I'm going to divide both sides by the thing that T is multiplied by, and that is R. It's going to cancel out here, and we get the T all by itself right there, so T equals D over R. So there's a formula for us that's all rearranged. So often it is easier to rearrange the formula without numbers in it. So you'll get some much more complicated formulas later, and rearranging them is just sometimes just so much easier, and we don't have a bunch of numbers to deal with too. All right, so we're going to now rearrange it for r. So we're going to do it again. And we get d equals rt. That's our starting point. But this time we are solving for r. So we want to get it by itself. All right, so I'm going to divide both sides by t. And the r does not cancel out. The t cancels out. And we get that r equals d over t. Notice I just switch the sides. Instead of writing d over t equals r, I always just switch the sides so I can have the thing I'm looking for on the left at the end. Okay, so those are just different ways to look at this. Rearrange it first. So the next question says find the time elapsed. So find the time elapsed, that's what we're looking for is time, when d equals 280 and r equals 40. Okay, so we're finding time. So why don't we just use that one right there? Let's go ahead and start with it. So we've got t equals d over r. Well, here's our d and here's our r. So we've got 280 over 40. There's no units or anything to deal with here because I just wanted to show you how to do these quickly. So 280 divided by 40 is 17. I don't know the unit because it didn't give us any. So t is 17. All right, so find the rate when d equals 100 and t equals 5. So we're going to do the same thing, but instead of scrolling up to c, we've got d equals rt is our original equation, but this time I want the rate. So I'm going to divide both sides by t before I plug my numbers in, and I get that r equals d over t. And now I'm going to take my d and my t, and I'm just going to put them in. 100 is the d, and the t is 5. So 100 over 5 is 20. So the rate is 20. Okay, so now we're going to look at the area of a triangle. This is a formula that you might want to commit to memory, but area is 1/2 base times height. So the area is the area of the triangle, the A is the area of the triangle, the B is the base of the triangle, and H is the height. So let me just show you what I mean. If we had a triangle here and look like this, this would be the B. This would be the B right here. The height would be from the top point down at a right angle. So that's our H. And the area is, the area of a floor or something. So it's a two-dimensional shape. So it's this. The area would be all of this in here. So that would give us the area. Okay, so make sure that all makes sense. That's A in there. We use a capital A usually. All right, so now we're being asked to solve for the height of a triangle using just the formula. So let's start with A equals 1/2 B times H. All right, we're trying to get the H by itself. So the first thing I want to do is deal with that fraction. So I'm going to take some of this and scoot it over so I can make a little room to write. So I'm going to write, let's see, I want to get rid of the 1/2. I want to bring it to the other side. How would I do that? What do? I multiply it by its reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply 2 over 1, or just 2 on the other side. 2 over 1 and 2 means the same thing. So why use a fraction if I don't need to? So the 2's are going to cancel out, and I'm left with 2a on the left and bh on the right. And remember, we're still looking for h. We're trying to find the height. So now we're going to divide both sides by the b. Why don't I do that in pink so you can see what I'm doing? Divide by b. And I get, give myself a little more room here, and I get that h, which is now by itself, equals 2a over b. So that's my h. So if I want to do a final formula, I put h equals 2a over b. So now I've solved for h. All right, so now I'm supposed to find h when b is 2 feet and a is 11 feet squared. All right, so I'm dealing in feet here. Area is always squared, square feet, right? So feet squared, square feet. So feet squared is the same thing as saying square feet. All All right, so we've got h equals 2 times the area over the base. So 2 times the area is 11, and the base is 2. Well, that was nice. The 2's cancel out, and the height is just 11. And what is it measured in? Height is not squared because it's not an area. It's just going to be feet. So keep track of your units so you can think about what your answer is going to be in. All right, here's another kind of problem. So the first part says solve I equals PRT for T. So that's what we're supposed to do first. So I equals PRT, and we're supposed to solve it for the T. So I'm going to divide both sides by P and R. Divide by P and R. So the R's cancel out and the P's cancel out, and I'm left with just the T by itself. So I get T equals I over PR. All right, then it says, now find T. Well, look at that. We've already rearranged for it. When I is 615, so here's our I, P, and R are all given. Now remember R in formula, what does it need to be? We need to convert this to 0.03, the decimal form of percent. All right, so now let's just plug everything in. So I is 615.33. The P is right here, 2279. And the R is 0.03, 0.03. All right, so there are many ways to put this in your calculator. The way I often do it is I'll say 615.33 divided by 2279, and then again say divided by 0.03. So that's just telling it it's on the bottom. Or you can say 615.33 divided by, and you would say 2279 times 0.03, but in parentheses. Okay, so that's the difference. If this is times, if you use this as times and say they're multiplied together, you have to put parentheses around the whole thing and say divide by the whole thing. And that's where this divide comes from. So either one works. All right, oh, I guess we need to do an answer. So the time is 9 years. 9 years. Okay, so remember this formula, time is always in years. All right, so solve the equation 2x plus 11y equals negative 14 for y. So solve this equation for y. And then we're going to find y when x is 4. We'll do that second. Okay, so let's focus on the first part of the question. We've got 2x plus 11y equals negative 14. We're supposed to solve for y. So that's that one right there. We're going to try to get it by itself. So the first thing you want to do to solve for that is you want to subtract the 2x. Why? Because it is added. Okay, they're added together. So you want to, let me do this in a different color. We want to subtract the 2x minus 2x. Okay, so it's going to cancel out here. And we get what's left on the left. 11y is still left. And we've got negative 14 minus 2x. All right, now how are we going to get the y by itself? Because that's what we're looking for. So you're going to have to divide both sides, the whole thing, by 11. And we get y equals negative 14 minus 2x over 11. All right, don't do anything with that because all we need to do at this point is we need to take the x equals 4 and plug it right in here for the x. All right, so we've got y equals negative 14 minus 2 times the x is 4 over 11. All right, so order of operation, multiply first on top, negative 14 minus 8 over 11. Order of operation says that that fraction bar acts like a grouping symbol. So we say negative 14 minus 8 is negative 22 over 11. So negative 22 over 11 is negative 2. So that means when x equals 4, y equals negative 2. That is actually a point on a line. That's for later topics. All right. So let's see. Solve the equation P equals A plus B plus C for A. Okay, so we are just looking for A, that one right there. And we don't have any numbers or anything, so we're just supposed to solve for it. So let me rewrite it. P equals A plus B plus C. And we're supposed to find A all by itself. In other words, isolate it, get it alone. So how am I going to get it alone? Well, I'm going to subtract the B, and I'm also going to subtract the C. So I'm going to say minus B and minus C over on the left. It's going to subtract out right here. And over on the left, I have the P first, minus the B, minus the C equals the A. So if I write that with the A on the left, it would just look like this, P minus B minus C. That's it. Okay, next one, and I believe this is the last one. Solve the equation 2x plus 5y equals 6 for x. Okay, so we've got 2x plus 5y equals 6. I'm looking for x. So because there is a plus right here, that means I'm going to have to subtract the 5y first. You might want to think about this as starting like an onion, peeling away until you get into the x. So start far away and work your way in. All right, so the 5y is going to subtract out, and all I have left on the left side is 2x. And then I've got 6 minus 5y. Now next I want the x alone still, so I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. And I get x equals 6 minus 5y over 2. And there's nothing more I can do with that, so that is actually the final answer. So I know what x is. All right, that is the end. Thank you for watching.